everyone. This is Ed Franklin with the Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. I welcome. Thank you for listening. Please, if you see this podcast and it means something to you, or um, you think it'd be relevant to somebody else, please share my podcast. And if you're a YouTube subscriber, go to YouTube, subscribe to my channel, and you'll be notified when I do a podcast. So, I have not started this podcast, but I had intended to do it last week, to start it last week, and it seems like every time I turned around, there was more notes to write, or something would happen, or I'd have an experience, and then I wanted to add to it. And like I said, I sit at my kitchen bar, and I add notes to a pad of paper that I'm looking at right now. And it's not necessarily organized, but it's just things I wanted to touch on. And it was, I was going in one direction, then I'd go somewhere and go to an event, and something else would come up, and I was just intrigued. So I'd make another note, and then I'm like, well, I'll do it tomorrow because I want to. So that's kind of how this whole thing got mashed out. And even though, I'm always going to repeat things that I've said before because I think they're relevant, and I don't always remember what I've told you before. And then I have some new stuff in here, and then so it's just gonna be a little scattered, no big deal. That's kind of the beauty of a podcast. If I was getting up and speaking in front of a group of people, I'd have to be a little bit more organized, a little more articulate, because I'd have to be, because I'd have been a time crunch. I'm not here. But the whole thing started, I sat down one night, this was like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and I went, I was frustrated, first of all, because I didn't get a lot of views on my last podcast, and I don't know if it's me doing poor marketing or what is going on. That's something I'm really addressing at the beginning of the year, because I need to really blow this thing up. So, and I get companies constantly calling me and emailing me saying, we can blow up your podcast, but then there's a lot of warnings about that and stuff. And I guess maybe I just need to get a really good guest, because a lot of times the guest is what is going to, I'm adjusting my thing here. A guest, if it's a really good guest, real popular guest, then people will listen in, their fans will listen in, and then I can get, benefit from that. But the way this whole thing started is I said, I really think a lot of times we're not thinking big enough. And this kind of thinking about our goals and how our life should be and what we want in life and all these things. And we all know it's not easy to get to that next level, but at the same time, we got to have that vision, right? We talk about vision all the time on this podcast. And what it was, it kind of came out of, I went to a chamber event for the San Diego Chamber of Commerce. And, I get there and they have food and they have drinks, and they give you a couple drink tickets, and you go and get, like I don't know, glass of wine or whatever, your soda, or whatever you want to drink. And then I started talking to some people. I saw some friends that I knew, so we were chatting it up and just kind of talking about the same bullshit we always talk about, how the kids, this and that. It seems like every time I go to a chamber event, I have more grandkids, so that's always the topic, right? How many grandkids you got now, kind of thing. And I thought, I ran a chamber for 3 years, and I went to a lot of chamber events prior to running the chamber. And now I'm going to more chamber events. And what really dawned on me is that the events are just the same. They're just the same shit we've been going to for 10 years. There's nothing different. It's the same people. They may be different faces, but it's the same businesses. It's the same people trying to get the same business. And I thought, besides for a social event, which I'm not that interested in being in a social situation like that, and I'll explain that a little bit later. I just think these are becoming a waste of time. And I know networkers all over that are listening to my podcast will grab their heart. I got a lot of business from networking years ago. I don't see the same business opportunities I used to see at a chamber. It's just like I said, it's just it's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And I'm just not getting them. And I just don't see the people that are there getting them. You have your, certain level of successful people that are always been successful. They're in those types of businesses. Maybe they're insurance or realtors or whatever, and they have a good clientele. Then you have younger people that are trying to kind of build their network and this and that. And even when I I follow up with people after networking events. I'm very good about that. Most people do not follow up, or they don't show up. They say they're going to be there and they don't show up. So that's kind of where I started thinking, we're not thinking big enough. We're going to these places. I mean, what size job am I going to get out of one of these networking events? Who am I going to meet? Because the people I really need to meet, they don't go to the networking events. They're working 15 hours a day and they're not going to go there. And a lot of the times their businesses, they're like in biotech or something. They're not going to come to a mixer because it's not their clientele. It's not who they need to see. So as I started thinking about that, I really thought that, man, we're just not thinking big enough. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And I had this like realization moment. And you hear this from athletes and you hear it from, you know, uh, you hear it from all kinds of people that are super successful or they're super arrogant. And they say, you know what? They go, I'm different. I'm not like you. In that, and I am different. I am different than you, and you are different than me. There's no doubt about it. We have different disciplines. We have different motivations. We have different things that get us moving. We have different things that that we do that get us motivated. And I and I just think that I always, when I would approach a situation, like when I was running the Chamber of Commerce or when I was running the Knights of Columbus group or the Dad's Club or all these multiple things that I've run in the past, I just looked at things different and I kind of took a different approach. And they were always worked. It always worked. And, I would joke around and say, if you just do it my way, everything will work out. And you know what? I was right, because those organizations now they're not as effective as they were when I was running them. Could I still do that? 100%. That's what I do. And it's funny, when I was looking for work, when I was sending out resume, I always want to put on like the second page, third page, whatever. I just want to have a big sign that says I get shit done, because a lot of times that's what we're good at, is getting things done. I can look at a situation and go, okay, we need this and that and that and this. And if I don't know how to do it, I know people that know how to do it. And that was why I think that people thought, well, God, Ed's really well connected. Well, shit, dude, when I need stuff done, if I can't do it, I know who to do it. And I know when I don't know how to do it. So there's when we were remodeling our house, I knew when I should not be driving nails. I needed a carpenter to do that, or doing plumbing or electricity or whatever. So that's when I say I'm different. I approach things way different than you all. And I know that I've mentioned this before, and I'm not bragging. I'm just making a statement that I've been going to the gym. I get up at 4 o'clock every morning and get to the gym at 5. And that, I'm different than most of you. Most of you don't do that. Why do I do that? I've explained it before. It's really changed my life in that I have this new discipline that I'm being I'm very good at being disciplined. I'm getting to the gym at least 5 days a week, most of the time 6. And it's changing my life. And when I go to the gym, I don't just, and this is just not me bragging. This is just kind of, I'm just telling you what I'm up to. And maybe it applies to you, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But when I go to the gym, I just don't go through this routine. My son-in-law goes with me sometimes to the gym, and we have these people that we kind of make fun of and to ourselves because of their routine, right? It's the same thing every time. Same weight, same exercise, same movement, same timing, and that is good for them. That's what they should keep doing. I'm trying new exercises. I'm trying to go heavier. I'm trying to do a lot more things. So I'm not just going to the gym for for an exercise, in that it's going to be the same every time. Do I do a lot of the same exercises? Of course I do. The ones that I feel like are the most effective for me. Everybody has their favorite exercises, and I do those, but I do get out of my comfort zone too and try some new things. In fact, tomorrow we're supposed to hit the bag a little bit. We're going to do some other things. So it's not stuff I did. Yesterday we were flipping tires. It's just one of those things. So when I say I'm different, I really realize I am really different. And I'm going to do something that irritates the shit out of me right now. I'm going to complain about some people that complain. And I have a note that says, bitching from positive sales professionals. Now I'm doing it. Now I'm going to complain. But here's what I'm complaining about. I have these two people that have both been on my podcast. and they're very successful. They're sales trainers, public speakers. They do this stuff a lot. This is what they do for a living every month or whatever. But I always will see them post negative stuff about companies, people they don't know, celebrities, athletes, referees, whatever. And I thought, this is exactly what you don't want salespeople doing, is being negative when they're out in the field. I used to have a guy that would come to my networking events, and one of his go-to things all the time was insulting his competitor. They do this wrong, they do that wrong. And I used to say to him, Mike, whoops, just said, I don't know if you know who I'm talking about. He does, if he's listening. Nobody cares that you have a negative opinion about your competitors and it looks bad on you. I never worry about my competitors. People will say, hey, your competitor's doing this. I don't give a shit. And I learned that at Pepsi. When I worked at Pepsi in the 80s, I never worried about what Coke was doing. I worried about what Pepsi was doing. And we had a boss that was like that. I don't want to hear the C word, he used to call it, at anywhere in this plant. I never want to hear the C word. So these two sales professionals, one always rips airlines, right? So he'll say something about an airlines that he had a bad experience on, whatever. And I understand. I've had bad service before too. I don't usually go out and tell people about bad service. I don't post it online. I don't go to Yelp. I don't do any of that. For the most part, I get good service everywhere I go, or adequate service. And you never know, if you're dealing with a person at a register, at a check stand or something, at a grocery store, and they're just not feeling it that day. Maybe they had a fight with their wife or husband, or their car got hit that morning. I'm not going to take that out on this poor person that's trying to earn a living so they can feed their family or feed themselves, whatever they're doing. So I just don't do that. If there's perpetual bad service, I just don't patronize that place. I just would not give them money. If I've gone to a restaurant and the food's bad and it's more than one time, I'll just won't ever go back to that restaurant. Don't go to restaurants much anyway, but one of those things. But one of the sales professionals was commenting on an athlete that just did something. And he doesn't know this athlete, I'm sure, personally. He's going off what he's heard in the media and whatever they want. And, the reality is it's the athlete's business. It's not our business. You think about, you want to burn these athletes, but you realize how good they are at what they do. If you play sports or do any of these things, you have to give them some props. I have a friend that hates Tom Brady, just can't stand Tom Brady. And I don't have fucking no idea why. I mean, I don't know Tom Brady. I don't like or dislike him, but I mean, kind of the proof's in the pudding. He's had a pretty good career. And I just think it's just negative stuff in your life. You don't need to do it. And here I am, like I said, I'm criticizing these two guys, and I am criticizing them because I think they just need to stay in their lane and continue to be positive on what they're trying to teach out there in the sales world. Sales is not easy. It's one of these jobs where you have to, I'm going to mention something that's about marketing and sales in a minute, but you really have to have a positive attitude. You really have to have that can-do attitude, that person of possibility that I talked about last time. And so it's real positive, right? You got to look at things and go, okay, yeah, we can do that. You get called on stuff and they say, can you do this? And you're just like, yeah, I mean, I can do that. I may not have the tools. I need to get the tools, or I need to get the people, or I need to get the trucks, or I need to get whatever. I told you I've been in the construction business before and watched them move mountains with cranes and, dirt movers and all that. So like I said, what gets me is that you have these two positive people making comments on very popular business platforms of negativity. And they get some response. I mean, I see some of the comments. They don't get that much response, but it's usually one of their friends that'll say something. But I just think it's crazy how critical we are of everybody, people we don't even know. I mean, I don't look at celebrities like there's one celebrity in my life that I think I'd like to meet. And I'm not starstruck, so I don't really care about what they do. They just do a different job than me. It happens to pay a lot more than my job, but that's okay. I mean, I don't have that skill that they have. But I always wanted to meet Dana White, the WWE or the what do you call it, the MMA guy. I don't even think it's MMA, whatever his company's called. And the reason I want to meet him is because I constantly see him on TikTok talking about he'll be in a press conference or he'll be in, just talking to Joe Rogan or somebody. And he has this thing. He's like, listen, I don't give a fuck. And he'll say it over and over and over. Someone will try to pull him into some drama. And he says, look, I don't fucking care. This is what my job is. This is what I do. He recently, they signed a contract with Bud Light. He's like, I don't fucking care what you think. I have a responsibility to my shareholders to do, you know, to make money, and Bud Light makes money. And this is what they pay me to do this and that. And that's my responsibility. He doesn't care. So I always thought he's just interesting. And I see him all the time, like I said, on little clips and things. And I just loved his attitude about that. I've told you before that I had a great realization 5-6 years ago where I just lifted the weight of the world off my shoulders. And I really fucking don't care what people think. I really don't. If they don't like my podcast, don't listen. If you don't like my shoes, don't look, don't comment, don't talk to me. That's okay. I don't have the energy to get pulled into your drama. There's enough nice people out there in the world that I can talk to. I have enough grandkids. I'm busy enough, right? Do I want to make more money and get into other businesses? Of course I do. I'm working on that. But I don't fucking care if people like what I do. When you look at some of these people from the 80s and 90s, these what am I trying to say? Musical artists, right? And now they're back out in the world trying to do the same thing they were doing, but now they're in their 70s. I think they look ridiculous. I just think they look like idiots out there. David Lee Roth is one of the guys. First of all, he cannot fucking sing anymore. I saw him. He was never that good a singer. He was just entertaining, and he had the right voice for the right music and all that. And I listened to him the other day on Facebook or something, and the guy's terrible. He should not even be out there. Corey Feldman's another one that's got a musical career. How the fuck this guy have a musical career? I don't know. I don't know if it's people just watching him because they love their movies. But by the way, I'm criticizing people I don't know. I'm sure they're nice people. I'm sure I could hang out. We'd have a great conversation about the 80s. Their music and stuff, not my speed, right? If people like it, good for them. I hope they're real successful. That's awesome. So, but I want to get off that criticism. My point to it is here we had these two positive salespeople that are out there teaching people that they need to be positive and be proactive and all this. And all they do, not all they do, but they'll pepper in bitching when they really have no idea what they're talking about. You can call this new contract this baseball player got for $700 million for 10 years. People are criticizing him taking that. They make too much money. They do not make too much money. They make what the market bears. You wouldn't take $700 million for 10 years if your market bared that? Yes, you would. You would absolutely do it. It's not blood money. He's not doing anything wrong. He just plays baseball, but he brings in season ticket holders. He brings in fans. They get TV revenue. They get radio revenue. They get all this stuff. And it's finally the money's going to the players and not always to the owners. So I don't know. I don't see how you can criticize a guy for doing that. He's not stealing the money. He's not doing anything wrong. And, that's up to him. He should be able to do that. And the one criticism was this guy that went to this live golf thing. I don't even fucking know what it is. You have the PGA and then you have this live thing that's being put on by these people in another country. And some of these golfers are jumping ship for like $500-600 million. I don't know, man. If I played golf, that might be exactly where I'd be playing golf. It's again, they're going to make their money back somehow. Somebody's penciled out the math and said this is how it should work. So listen, I see athletes come on TV all the time and they'll say things that I don't agree with. I don't agree with a lot of people when they say things, and they wouldn't agree with me. The way I've handled stuff in my life, most people wouldn't have. I've rolled the dice, a few times, and it has not worked out every time. It's not working out right now, but it will, because I know that I'll just keep going. But I have a note down here that says, you'd really need to make up your mind. And we've talked about this before, about what you want to do with your life, where you want to be, how you're going to get there. Whether it's drinking, weightlifting, losing weight, smoking, drinking, starting a business, not starting a business, retiring, whatever you're doing, you really got to focus on what you're doing. And you got to burn the fucking boats. There's an old story, and I don't know if it's true or not, about Napoleon saying, look, if you want to take the islands, you got to burn the boats. Tony Robbins coined that thing too. You can't have a plan B. You got to have a plan A only. Plan B, if you have a plan B, you're going to end up on plan B. I'll guarantee you 99.9% of the time. If you go, well, if this doesn't work out, I'll just go back here, you're going to be back there. You might as well just do it right away. You got to get focused and just make those, always be making strides, right? If your thing is running and you run 2 miles a day, run 2.2 miles next day. I do that at the gym. I'm still lifting a little bit more and doing a little bit different exercises. Yeah, is my age absolutely affecting me? Of course. There's stuff that I used to do that I won't do now because I just don't, it's not beneficial for what I'm trying to do. And I'm getting older. I just can't, just some of this stuff I just can't do. But I'm always pushing myself. And I'm just going to be more different as we get moving here in the future, because for two reasons. I got to find my niche. It's like, if I haven't found it by now, give up. Fuck that. I'm not giving up. I'm going to find my niche in life. I was talking to my daughter yesterday. She was telling me about a situation she was in, my oldest daughter, and she was sitting with some pretty influential. I won't even tell you what she was doing, because she was sitting in a situation and she brought up an idea to help out morale, and it had some good effects on employees and stuff. And she's one of those people that can get things done. She's been told that before. Just lisped for some reason. She can get shit done. We've talked about this many times. You give her a situation and you might not like how she gets it done. She might not ask you. She might tell you how to do things like I do. But at the end game, shit's going to be done right. It's going to be done effectively, and it's going to be done within the parameters of cost or whatever. I've always been good at that. I'll always be good at it, but it's very hard when you're looking for work. And it seems that these companies have these little niches spelled out. Like, a lot of times they'll tell you how to sell, right? You got to do this much in business and do that. And you're like, no shit, that's like the easy stuff in sales. But how are you going to get there? We're facing a pretty shitty economy right now. Will it change? Yes, it'll change. I guarantee you, because it's cyclical. It always changes. But right now is not the time to stop selling or stop marketing. Right now is the time to do exactly that. And we have we had a sales meeting the other day. And we had a company that was telling us, giving us tips on sales and how to stay motivated and how to do this and how to do that. And I had to laugh a little bit, because the people that were doing it were kind of reading a script, and they were very young. They were probably in their early 30s. And I'd been selling longer than they'd been alive. And although they had some good content, they weren't engaging the people listening, the salespeople that were listening. And one gal in particular went off on this thing about what keeps you motivated. And she went on this whole maybe 10-minute thing about motivation. I'll tell you something about motivation. Motivation is an emotion that goes and comes and comes and goes and goes and comes and comes and goes. You can get up at 5 a.m, 4 a.m, like I do. I am not motivated to go to the gym. I don't get up and start dancing around going, yeah, I get to go to the gym. I'm like, fuck, I'm tired. Discipline is what gets me to the gym. The promise I made to myself, knowing what I'm going to do that day at the gym. I've already mapped it out in my head. Knowing that, yes, it's going to be cold when I get up. Yes, it's going to be cold when I get in the car. Yes, I got to eat when I wake up, which I don't like to do. But when I get to the gym, the discipline kicks in, and that's when I can really be effective, right? Motivation has nothing to do with it. When you say a motivational speaker, they'll motivate you for 5 minutes, but they're not going to keep you motivated. Discipline's going to keep you moving. Inspiration. I was watching I'm flipping my page. I was watching something the other day This is one of those things that stopped me from doing my podcast, and then I kind of got back into it. And I'm watching this thing. I'm watching America's Got Talent. It's just kind of clip that came up on TikTok. And this guy comes out with dreadlocks and really buff upper body with no legs. And I'm like, whoa, I gotta watch this. I mean, what the fuck's going on? So this guy comes out and they ask, how you doing? Tell us who you are, this and that. This kid was born with this really odd disease. So he didn't have legs. And he was in the foster system. Apparently his birth parents left him or didn't want him or whatever. And he was in the foster system and been to like 70 houses or some fucking crazy number he had been to. And right before they were going to kick him to the curb because he was 18, I think he was turning 18 years old, some woman comes and adopts him. And she takes him home and she starts working with this kid. And she's like, listen, I know you're different than other people, but you're not going to get treated any different. You're going to have to do this and that, this and that. And inspires this kid to, he does public speaking. He talks about motivation, right? He talks about inspiration. He's inspirational. Talks to kids about getting over limitations, things like that. He's on the stage, he's doing pull-ups, he's climbing up ropes, he's doing all these really physically challenging things, and the kid's got no legs. And I've got tears pouring down my face going, what the fuck am I complaining about? I got this warm house, I got a computer, I got all these things, I'm physically able. And here I'm complaining, and this poor kid, not a negative word came out of his mouth. It was insanely inspirational to watch this kid. That was one of the things I started watching that, and I'm like, shit, I got to kind of change directions on what I'm going to talk about today. But it was just another one of those things you see in your life. It was almost like God was sending those things to me to make me reevaluate how I'm feeling about my situation. I'm just frustrated right now, and I'm going to get over it because I just what I do, and the more frustrated I get, it feels like the more intense I get, the more inspired or motivated that I get, had more discipline I have. So that's just what that is. Yeah, I was so inspired by this kid, and it was really amazing to see. I don't know how you would look it up. I don't remember the guy's name or anything. I actually saved it on my phone, but just to watch for later. I was looking at my second page here of my stuff, and I'm thinking about weakness and how most men I find are very weak when it comes to their drive and their personality. And it's not even an age group. It's like I know just a lot of guys that just aren't very I don't know if manly is the word to say. Maybe they grew up in a different situation than I grew up in. We were kind of forced to grow up tough. We've talked about this in podcasts before. Just the generation I grew up in just was tougher. We fought more when we were kids. We had a hierarchy that we followed. And we just, even to this day, I'll run into very weak people, men and women, be honest with you. And they've just almost like given up. They're just not going to fight through for anything, right? They just put up with everything, and they just don't, they won't argue. They won't fight for what they believe in. But I had this note that says weakness, and I put most men. I've talked about this before too, efficiency. And this is something that you need to think about in your life. When I talked about foundation, we need to be more efficient. I see companies all the time, and would drive me nuts how inefficient they are. And it was hey, it's not my job. Pass it on to the next guy and next gal and this person. And they just waste so much money, so much time on worthless stuff. I remember in the 70s, there were things called efficiency experts, and what their jobs were is to come into a company and kind of find out what's costing them money that they're not really paying attention to. And I remember when I was at Pepsi, when I was selling to Pepsi, we were finding out that it was costing them about $60 per PO, which doesn't sound like a lot now, but when you're doing 100 POs a day, it adds up, right? So they had changed the way they were paying for their product, and they were starting to use credit cards, even though it cost them a couple percent. They were starting to, well, it really didn't, because the manufacturers were absorbing it because we could get paid in 72 hours, and Pepsi used to pay us in 90 days if they weren't. So it was actually beneficial to us, and they could stop writing POs. Now there was a limit on the credit cards. I know you guys don't give a shit about that, but the whole point is it was so much more efficient. I see a lot of inefficiencies in the company I work with, and I'm, trying to, I have to be careful, because sometimes I would want to implement things like that. And the next thing you know, I don't have a job, because whoever that efficiency, was allowing that inefficiency to happen would get rid of me. But we have this in our life a lot, where we're just not efficient, right? We're doing things over and over and over, the same thing, and it's costing us money. We're buying shit that we don't need, but that's your business. I don't care, because I buy stuff I don't need all the time. That's just my thing. But, if you look at how efficient your life is, and you could really almost hire an efficiency expert. You'd be surprised how much time we waste, how much money we spend, how much time in the gym. I watch people talk, they're talking a lot, they're on their phones, very inefficient. But I said, it's their business. That creates weak people, though. They're just not being focused on what they're doing. And they're doing it because they see these other guys having big success working out, but they're not putting the same time in or whatever. And that's my opinion. I could be way off track. I'm observing people that I think are really inefficient. And like I said, our uh, our company is just as guilty as a lot of companies out there. Constant awards, Jesus. Every time I turn around, especially on LinkedIn, somebody's getting an award, a pat on the back. We just didn't get a lot of that when we were, younger, and when we were young business people. We were supposed to do our job. I remember asking my dad one time if he'd pay me to get good grades. He said, "No, you're supposed to get good grades. That's your job. You're a kid. Go to school, get good grades, learn stuff. It's going to help you in your future." Blah 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 blah. And I knew kids that used to get paid for grades, and I didn't know. I thought it would be cool to get that. I never got that. We just didn't get pat on the back all the time. I know I had some trophies and medals from when I was a kid when I played, but because I placed, it's not just because I went. I would, win an event or something and to get a medal. And my mom just threw them all away. These weren't important. You did it, you're done. You don't need the reinforcement to have that hanging in your wall when you're 61 years old. And I don't care about that. I have a whole box of awards that I got, certificates and stuff, that I don't even know where it is anymore. I'd be might have thrown it away actually when we moved, but if we didn't, we will next time, because it just doesn't mean anything. I'd rather just keep the frame and take the shit out of it. But all these achievements, we used to get all these awards with the Knights of Columbus, and I never cared. I just gave them to somebody, and they put them in a box somewhere. I don't even know where they're at. Is it cool to get them? Yeah, I guess, but that's not what I was. Never wanted to do something to get an award, or to be rewarded. It was because that was what we were doing. We were a charitable organization. We were doing something for a group we were involved with. You know, and I put another note here. It says we are not all the same, and that's exactly the beauty of life, is we're not all the same. We don't want the same stuff. I changed the course of organizations that I took over. Am I bragging? Fuck yes, I'm bragging, because I was good at it. I could go into an organization. We used to get 15, 16 people in our meetings at nights. By the time I was done, we were getting 70 people in our meetings. People were showing up. They wanted to hear what I was going to say. They wanted to see the new program. We had this Coach for Kids program that we started. I actually started it. It was one of these, it's a thing that the Knights of Columbus do globally, but I started it in our chapter. And the first year we sold like 100 jackets or something. We got up to where we were selling almost 400 coats. Most parishes sell 14, or excuse me, 24, 2 cases of coats. I was selling 400. We were giving coats to the school district. We were giving coats to kids that were, not as fortunate as other kids. We were giving them wherever we could do. We were giving them to St. Jude's downtown, so they could give these homeless kids, and adults, coats. We kicked ass. I got people to do what they needed to do. And I have another note here that says I'm different. I wrote this down about 15 times. I am different. Y'all know me, I'm different. Am I as successful as I want to be right now? No. Am I going to be? Fuck yes, I'm going to be. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep driving forward, and I'm going to do what I think I need to do to be the person of possibility and the best version of myself. I, at times, and I know you guys do this too, we give in a little bit because we're allowing people to tell us who we are. This happens all the time. I spoke about this before. We have rich people telling us we'll never be rich because they're the rich ones and we don't know what they know. Bullshit. We know exactly what they know. Maybe they got lucky. Maybe they worked really hard. I'm sure they worked really hard, by the way. But we have the ability to do that too. If it's something you want to do, then you got to fucking do it. I really feel like right now, I need more mental stimulation. I need to get around people that think bigger, that do bigger things. In fact, I know I have to do that. Going back to that chamber situation, when I was at that chamber meeting, I was with the wrong people. I'm not with people that are thinking global. They're all thinking local. I need people that are thinking global, that want to change the course of things. I put something out on LinkedIn the other day. I got 801 impressions on this post about exactly that sentence, which tells me there's a bunch of other people that want to do the same thing. I don't want to be in a networking group that talks to accountants or people that sell promotional items. That's great. If they do that and that's where their success comes from, that's awesome. I don't want to do that. I want to speak to people that are going to show me how to speak in 400, countries over the course of my career, or 400 venues across the United States, because I have a great message to send. So that's what we really need. We need to get around the right people. And I know a lot of you are around the same people all the time, and those aren't bad people. But if you want to get to that next level, if you hang out with 5 millionaires, you'll be the sixth. If you hang out with 5 drug addicts, you'll be the sixth. Right? You got to be nurturing and putting good stuff into your head and getting out there. And if you want to do something big. Now, if you're just happy where you're at and all you need is another $200 a week, whatever. I get a lot of people like that. I need to get away from those people. I love you, but I need to be around some bigger thinkers. In this meeting the other day, the sales meeting, somebody said, I heard, and then they said a sentence. I don't know, it was about the economy or something. And then somebody else said, they say that, and I said, let me stop you guys right there. And my boss is the one that said, I heard. I said, no offense, boss, but I heard, and they say anything that comes after those is bullshit. 99% of the time it's bullshit. You either saw it in the media. It's the thing where they say you should, only work out 4 days a week. Who says that? Who's they? They say you should eat only this and that. Who's they? Is that Gary Brecka, or is that this guy or that guy? I could turn you on to 50 bodybuilders that'll tell you exactly opposite of what each other tells you, and they're all huge, great bodybuilders. You got to find what's good for you. This horse shit with, I know someone, they say you should drink a gallon of water a day. I don't know who they is, by the way. I heard a guy the other day says you don't need to drink water at all. And I'm like, shit, I never heard that before. Well, that's his opinion. Maybe he read something somewhere that backed that up. I have not, and it doesn't, I don't do that. I put in here, have a little note on the side that says good relationships aren't easy. Oh, no, I apologize. I put good relationships are easy. Why do I say that? People will say, well, marriage is hard. Marriage is tough, right? The divorce rate's 50%, blah, 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 blah. If you're with the right person, marriage is the easiest thing in the world. I feel like my marriage is the easiest part of my life. It's the part I never worry about. It's the part I just have no concern that that's not going to continue. I'm trying to be the best person to her that I can be to my wife, Kit. So to me, good relationships, they're super easy. It's bad relationships that are fucking a problem. And we need to, when it's salespeople, as just humans, we need to create good relationships, right? Have friends that we can talk to. I have a friend I'm going to breakfast with tomorrow that we are polar opposites when it comes to um, politics. Well, I shouldn't say that. He talks more about politics than I do, but generally we're polar opposites. But I love this guy. I like talking to him. We have good conversations. We talk about our families. We talk about other things. It's a good relationship. It's an easy relationship. I'm not in bad relationships anymore because I'm sick of them. I just won't have a bad relationship. It's too much work. I remember going to an organization once where I was a sales manager and I said, look, I don't argue with people. I just won't argue with you. If you want to argue, go find someone else to argue with. Because I argued for all those years I was married. I was in bad relationships. I'm not going to argue anymore. Doesn't matter. What I think is you shouldn't care about, and I don't care what you think of, you know. This person I was talking about, I'm going to breakfast with tomorrow, we grew up very differently. We had very different types of parents, things like that. It's obviously I'm going to have different opinions than he is about things. It's just the way it is. We grew up in two very different areas, grew up two different economic situations. So it's not, I don't fault him for his beliefs. I understand where they come from. He doesn't fault me for those. I put a note in here that says, I know way more than I think. When a situation comes up, I actually know a lot about something and forgot I even knew about it, right? I was doing some pricing the other day and just forgot about some math stuff that I used to know that I used because I'm pretty good at retaining information. But there's shit that'll come up that I'm like, oh yeah, I wouldn't have done it that way. I'm telling you why. Because this happened to me in this year and at this situation. And you all know more than you know too. You kind of forget, you put it on the back, in the back burner in the hard drive of your head. And then you can retain it. You pull it back. As parents, we learned a lot about parenting when we were growing up. And as our kids are having grandkids, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember I wouldn't have done that. I would not do that with that child. But it's your business. If you want to do it that way, that's up to you. I just wouldn't do it that way. Most experts aren't knowledgeable. They're egotistical. I think that's a lot of the thing. I think part of the problem I'm having moving my career forward as a public speaker is I just won't say anything. Whatever I say, I'm going to back up. It's going to be from my heart. It's going to be with some research that I've done. It's going to be whatever. I'm just not going to go out there and tell you things as like an actor, right? And I can't live with myself if I do that. If I tell you something that I know is absolutely wrong, I'm not going to do it. I just fucking won't do it. So I kind of had to steer that whole platform, my whole platform, towards something that I absolutely was 100% convinced about. And I am convinced that if you take care of yourself, you're going to be better at nurturing other people. We had a conversation today about this. Everybody I talk to agrees about it, right? But no one's talking about it, right? We don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about all these other things until it's too late. These are things we need to be taken care of. We should be the most selfish people in the world when we wake up in the morning. And it's not even selfish. It's actually our responsibility. Jordan Peterson said something to me. It's not to me. I heard him say, are we morally obligated to do great things? Is it our responsibility to do great things? I think it is. I think it is. And especially if you believe that you have a creator that created you and gave you skills and gave you talents, it's your responsibility. In fact, it's imperative that you do it. It's absolutely 100% required of you to be the best version, that person, a possibility to live up to what you were built to do. I said the overpaid athletes are not overpaid. They work super hard, and that's true. I still don't think they get a lot of money, but it's not like it's coming from others. So listen, if they're getting a lot of money because you're paying $95 for a jersey and you don't like that, don't fucking buy the jersey because you know where the money's going to go. I tell you, if the money wasn't available, they wouldn't get paid. The money's available. There's all kinds of ways that there's streaming income from networks and all this stuff. And it's all comes down to advertising dollars. And I gave this lesson to my kids once when we were watching Friends, and these guys were making $1 million an episode. It's only because they had a gazillion watchers, and Tide and Coke and Pepsi go, hey, we'll pay this much per, pay this much per TV viewer, and you get this much. That's how much money you're going to make. That's how they get the money. It's not brain surgery. It's not too much money. CEOs are the same way. If they can come and raise, and listen, some of those CEOs they hired, they fucking fall on their face and they fire their ass quicker than shit. Some of them got some sweet ass deals, some parachute deals that are insanely good, but somebody at some point, they had to have that money available. Is it coming out of workers' pockets? I guess. If you don't like it, invent a fucking electric car. There you go, Mr. Musk. I don't know what my age group is that's listening to this. I do have some statistics on it, but there was a guy named Paul Harvey in the 60s and 70s, I think, and he had this really unique voice. And when radio was popular, he would come on the radio, I think once a day, or maybe it was once a week. I can't remember, but I'd hear him talk all the time. And at the end of him talking, he would say, and now you know the real story. So he would tell stories about athletes or, writers or people in history and all these things. And watching TikTok the other day, he comes up and he's telling the story, and he's passed away now. His son has a voice almost identical to him, and he does it now, I think, for radios or whatever. But I think this was the original Paul Harvey, and he's telling the story about this kid that was in high school, and he kept getting kicked out of high schools, and he finally got kicked out. And he then I think he went to college, and he did real shitty in college. And he went to get a job, and he couldn't get a job. No one would hire him. They said, you got a bad reputation. You've been kicked out of these high schools. You've done this and done that. And finally, this guy, he gets an interview with this guy, and this guy kind of likes the kid, right? So he starts talking to him, and they end up having this 2-hour interview. And he starts to really like this guy, and he says, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to give you a job. His name's Al. I'm going to give you a job, Al. But if you fail this job, man, you're really going to be screwed, because now you're going to have a reputation of failing in jobs. He says, I understand. The guy got horrible grades. He was horrible in school, did all these terrible things. So Paul Harvey's telling this story, and he ends up telling the person he was talking about was Albert Einstein. And I always believed Paul Harvey's stories, and you could look them up and, double check. But he always had a lot of credibility with me. And when I did check on something, he was right. Can you imagine Albert Einstein, one of our, I don't know, genius by all means, right? One of our most respected scientists ever, had a hard time in high school and college, and he ends up getting a job with a patent office in Switzerland. It was just an amazing story. And I thought, man, is that you? Right? Are you the amazing person that hasn't found their niche yet, or hasn't found, or they're being kicked to the curb by society because society thinks this certain way? Is that you? That's an amazing story. So, I have a note down here that says I feel like I'm called for this, to go out and speak to people. I know that when I'm doing this podcast, I'm not super smooth. I said something to someone the other day, and they said, is that what you wear when you speak? And I went, yeah, I wear a hat. And I don't wear a hat because I'm bald. I'm bald. I wear a hat because I like wearing a hat. I wore a hat when I was a kid. I wore a hat when I worked at Pepsi. I just like wearing a hat. It's kind of my moniker, right? It's kind of my, if you had you could probably tell who I was in a silhouette. You'd go, oh, that's got to be Ed. He's wearing a hat, glasses, whatever. Usually they're sunglasses. It's just my thing. It's just what I've done for many years. And I don't know, some of you guys do shit that you've done for a lot of years, and it's just what it is. But I told this guy, what does it matter? If they want me to show up in a suit, I can do that. Is it going to make the lesson any better? Is it going to make, I want to be real with people. I don't want to be an actor. If I wanted to be an actor, I'd go to acting school, and I were a comedian, I would go and be a comedian somewhere. I might suck at it, probably would. Not something I want to do. I don't want to be a comedian. I don't want to act in movies. I don't want to do that stuff. I want to be a public speaker. I want to talk to people I want people to leave and I want to change their life. I want them to change their life. I want not me, I want them to do it. I want to convince them that they have enough value that their life is worth changing. And I want them to show you that it's not that tough, right? I told you earlier, you got to work hard. It's baby steps. Think huge, take baby steps to get there. You know, we're running out of time at some level, right? I mean, if a 30-year-old's listening to this, I ran into a guy the other day at the gym, big fucker, tattoos all over the place, big guy, and we end up talking. He's 40 years old. He goes, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 61." He's like, "Good Lord, you look great." But the point is, 61, that means I'm 21 years closer to death than he is. And I want to get this stuff done. I want to have a legacy. Um, I have this note. So I feel like I'm called for this. And it's not about motivation, it's about discipline. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to say two things to you. I'm going to tell you a little story, and I'm going to tell you, so what are you going to do? What are you going to do today, tomorrow? Tomorrow's the 15th. What are you going to do New Year's Day? What are you going to do? When are you going to change the stuff you're bitching about, you're complaining about? You know, I'm not doing enough for myself. I guarantee you it pisses me off, and I'm not doing enough to help myself move forward. But I'm doing way more than most people. Am I good at what I do? I'm going to get really good at what I do. Okay. I am good. I couldn't go into a company and look at it and go, you know, I can fix a lot of your shit. Honestly, I can do that. If you're willing to change, I can fix stuff for you. But most people aren't willing to change. They want you to fix it, but they don't want to change. So I'm going to tell you the story that I heard a guy tell the other day, and I've heard this told in different versions. I heard a Matthew Kelly tell it. And this is a big this story means a lot to me, and I'll tell you why at the end. There's this tribe of Indians, and the way that their young people become men, their men become men, and they kind of go to the next levels. They send them out into the forest, into the mountains for a week. No food, no water, no nothing. They just send them out and they say, "We're going to come find you in 7 days, and you got to survive on whatever." So this little Indian boy goes out. He's just a kid, 13, 14 years old, goes out. First couple days, great success. He's getting food. He's finding berries. He's found water. He's doing all these things. And he has this, place he needs to go. So he starts getting a little disoriented. He's starting to get a little scared, a little cold, 3, 4 days in. And he goes, "You know what? There's a mountain. I'm going to climb that mountain, and then I'll be able to see where I'm at." Smart thinking. "And I'll know what direction to head once I get up there." So on the way up this path, he almost steps on a snake. And the snake is sitting there and looks up at him kind of startled. And he says, "Little boy, you got to help me, man. I'm lost. I don't know where to go." And the little boy goes, "Oh shit, no, I'm not helping you. You're a snake. You're bad. You bite people, you kill things. I'm not messing with you." He goes, "Little boy, I promise I won't hurt you. I'm lost, and I know that you are going to the top of this mountain. Can you just pick me up and take me to the top of the mountain and I can see? And if you find where I need to go, I'll reward you." So the little boy finally convinces this little kid to take him up. So he picks him up, he takes him to the top of the mountain, and the snake sees where he's supposed to be. So they go down to this place and they're having this big party, and the snake's there, and there's music, and there's other snakes, and they're dancing, and the boys dancing, and they're eating all this food and drinking all this yummy drinks and everything. And all of a sudden the snake reaches out and boom, and bites him, right? And the little boy screams, just a curdling scream in pain. And he says, "My God, why did you do that to me? You told me you wouldn't do that. You said that if I helped you find it, you would help me, and you are helping me having this party and everything, but now I'm going to die because you bit me and you said you wouldn't do that." And the snake says, "Boy, let me tell you something. You knew what I was when you picked me up. You knew that I was bad for you, but you picked me up anyway." And the reason that story means so much to me is because that's been part of my life: smoking, drinking, doing things I shouldn't be doing. And I know they're bad. I know they're bad. And I do them anyway. And so do a lot of you. That story meant so much to me that I had it tattooed on my arm, if you can see. that snake right there. There's a big snake. And it meant so much to me and so much to me. And when I start thinking about the things I've done that I shouldn't be doing, or the things that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing, I think that I know that they're bad for me and I do them anyway. And like I said, we all do them. And I'm trying to get rid of those things in my life. It's about time. I should have done it 40 years ago, but those things still haunt me. And that's just such a great story because we know. And like I said, it meant so much to me that I had it tattooed on my skin. Listen, I really love doing this podcast. I don't have hardly any listeners, by the way. Some of these people out there got millions and millions of listeners. And one of these days, maybe I'll find the right company or I'll find the right guest that'll help me get. But there's nothing makes me happier than when I'm done with one of these videos and I can publish it. And here's the most important reason, because one of these days with 19 grandchildren, I'm not going to be around them, and they could be little when this happens. I don't know. It could happen tomorrow. We don't know. But the reality is I've left this legacy behind. They can go onto my podcast, over 100 of them, and listen to them and go, that's my grandpa, right? It's just, they can see what I was like, how I spoke. They probably won't be happy about how I spoke all the time. It's just going to be, I knew my grandparents, but very little. These kids are going to be able to watch this because of technology, be able to watch these podcasts and go, wow, he's pretty cool. Papa was pretty cool, or Papa was a jerk. I don't know. They could say either way. My kids are always going to be able to go back if they're feeling nostalgic. I can't do that with my mom. I don't even have 5 pictures of her, or I probably do because I have I maybe have 20 pictures of her. I have 0 pictures of my dad, or I think I have 1. I don't even know where it is. But now they'll be able to come back and look at these and this is going to be my legacy. So the worst thing that can happen to this podcast is that it gives me like eternal digital connection to my family. And that's a pretty cool fucking thing right there. So listen, I really appreciate you guys that listen. I'm going to try to split this podcast up in some pieces this time because I don't normally do that, and I'm being encouraged to do that. I hope that all of you celebrate the holidays, whatever holiday you're celebrating, and you just have a fantastic time and you get a chance to be around your family, your grandkids, your kids, your mom, dad, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, friends, whatever. Because this is really what, I don't know, they say, I already went that, what they say the holidays are about. And I am here to tell you that's exactly what the holidays are about, for you to get together and be in love with yourself and your families and friends and be safe and, exchange gifts, whatever you do on the holidays. I'm just excited you're going to have some time, and I hope you get some time off. We have a new year coming very soon, and I'll probably do a podcast before Christmas just to kind of talk about Christmas or whatever. But I'm so glad you guys listened to me, and I really hope this podcast gets bigger, and I hope I'm out public speaking next year and getting paid for it, because that would be cool. And I can't thank you guys enough for listening, and please share this podcast if you get an opportunity. Or like I said, listen, not everything I say in here is worth listening to. I know for some of you, maybe somebody else it would be worth listening to. You are all miracles in my world. 1 in 400 trillion were the odds that you were even born. So as far as I'm concerned, you're all miracles. And every time we have a new grandchild, I always say it's just another miracle. So with that being said, I appreciate you listening. Enjoy your holidays. I'll probably be back on. You can always reach me at edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. And there's not much more to say. I know it was a little scrambled today. I got news for you. My podcasts are always going to be that way. I don't have a plan necessarily, and there's a design for that because I want it to be organic and just, you get what you get kind of thing. So God bless all of you, and have a great rest of the month. And I'll definitely do a podcast before the new year. So be looking out for it. So have a great day. Thank you, everybody.